Learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday.
March 16th meeting of the River Advisory Committee. And I believe if a quorum is 5 people, we have a quorum. So we'll announce our names for the benefit of the recording secretary in a roll call.
Trevor Matera, representative from the Conservation Commission.
Nico Papakos-Sindis, Select Board Rep.
Richard Huber, chairman.
Rod Borden.
Warren Biggins, Phillips Exeter Academy.
Okay, first order of business is we haven't met for a long time and we never did approve the October draft minutes, the draft minutes of the October 20th meeting. So I know you poured over it over the weekend. I forwarded it in the email. You all got that email, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
Excuse me, is the mic on?
Yes.
as far as I know, this mic is on, but you're not hearing me?
I am hearing you, but not everyone. So,
Oh, okay. Well, I think we're depending on the sound to reach you, but the mics are there for the video recording. Okay. And we have a guest whose name is Don Latimer? Latiner. Okay. So anyway, has everybody poured over these and decided that they're okay the way they are?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So we need a motion to approve the October 20th minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So that was Trevor who made the motion, and Nico seconded it?
Other way around.
The other way around?
Yep.
I moved and he then.
Okay, Nico moved and Trevor seconded. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? It's unanimous. We're approving the minutes. Okay. Now, the next thing on the agenda is to hear from Paul Vlasich about our various and sundry projects.
Hello, Paul Velocich. I've got a little bit of a handout here that will facilitate some of the discussion.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Paul.
Can this be transmitted to the recording secretary?
If you give her a copy,
Well, I don't know how to do that.
that makes two of us.
I can arrange for that.
Very good.
Okay. We are talking about Joanna Bartel is our recording secretary.
And actually, yeah.
I can take care of that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I guess these are all the same? I think these are all the same. Was there a second thing or just?
Paul,
Okay,
were there 2 handouts, or
there was 2.
Maybe there, did
are they
I?
both pickpocket studies?
Yeah.
Oh, hold
yeah, they're
on,
both-
I have a file, but I didn't know.
One's
We've got it.
I got
a
it.
calendar type of thing. And
Thank you.
Yeah, we got it. I just had,
All set.
pile was in the wrong pile.
So I'd like to start with the Pickpocket Dam. It's been a little while since we talked about this. We do have a contract with a consultant to do the feasibility study. And we do have all of our homework in for the two grants. We have a coastal resilience grant for $40,000, and we have a clean water, stormwater SRF grant for $100,000. I'd like to point your attention to the schedule. And this is for discussion only at this point, but it's at least a game plan that the consultant and I and some of the officials at DES have talked about for laying out the schedule of the feasibility study. And as soon as I find the one that I wrote on, I'll talk a little bit more about it there.
Okay.
Or else I'll have to wing it then.
You need this back?
No, I need the one I wrote all my notes on. Okay, so this goes from 2022 all the way out to 2024, and the first thing you notice is the task list, and it has task number 1, and it's a general description like data collection for task number 1. If you look at the other handout that I give you, there are little subsections of what falls under task number 1, and then what falls under task number 2, and so on. To give you a better idea of what these major task lines are is why you got the second handout. And previously also you had a draft scope of services from the consultant too, so you could read onto that to define any of those items even a little bit more. But for right now, just the general layout of this schedule will suffice. Then there are these two colors that keep popping up. One is a light blue and the other one is a pink. And that has to deal with the two grants that we got. The blue one is the Coastal Resilience Grant, and the pink one is the Stormwater Planning Grant. And if you look right to the right of where it says Task 1, Task 2, Task 3, you'll see some pink or blue highlights in it. Those grants pay some of the items in those particular tasks. Like, again, let's use number 1, for example, has a blue and pink color in it. And so both of those grants, the coastal and stormwater grant, pay some of that particular item. And that gets important because if you look at the schedule a little bit more, you'll see right at June of 2023, a vertical blue line. Well, right now, that's when our grant ends, and we're supposed to be all done with that particular item. So that's why it's important to know which goes to which. What we're currently in the process, though, is trying to move that deadline to the end of 2023. So you'll see a second vertical line, blue one, December of 2023. That's where we're trying to request an extension. And the reason for requesting this extension for the Coastal Resilience Grant is because there is some surveying within the impoundment immediately upstream of the dam, and there is some sediment sampling also. And for the last 4 or 5 months or so, our consultants have wanted to get out there and do that survey, take those samples, but there's been quite a bit of flow in the river. So We're going to have a fallback plan here of potentially removing some of those slats in the fish ladder in an effort to draw down the impoundment at least to the crest level, or even maybe open up the low-level discharge gate too, to let some water out so that the surveyors and the geotech people can go out there and do what they want. So we still think we can do the work to meet the end of June deadline, but just to add a little buffer is why we're asking for that deadline extension on that particular project, on those particular tasks, excuse me. And then there is a pink vertical line that goes all the way out to April of 2024. That is the end of the stormwater planning grant also. So for each one of these tasks, you'll see highlighted in green where activity will be happening with the consultant. And the next noteworthy thing to talk about here is the little stars that appear in the schedule. At the very bottom, at the project management portion of the schedule, you'll see a series of pink or blue stars. And the first one that you see is February of this past February, last month. That was our kickoff meeting with both the coastal resilience folks and also the stormwater planning folks. The next one that you see is June of 2023. It's a blue one, indicating that we'd have to have an end meeting if we can't extend our deadline from June on out to December. So that's why that one's there as a placeholder. And this is nothing, these stars that I'm talking about right now, that the committee has to get too involved with. This is going to be more internal between the grant folks and the consultants and myself. You'll see a pink one in October of 23. We've got to do a sort of a midterm of the project discussion with the stormwater folks. And then also in April of 24 is the closeout of that particular grant. But what most of you folks are concerned about is those yellow stars up at task number 7 that talks about the report that we're going to do for the Pickpocket Dam, or that we're in the process of doing for the Pickpocket Dam. And the very first one is a couple of months from now, and that's the star yellow one with a number 1, and that's for the consultant to come in and give you a little presentation of what they found up until that date right there. It'll be just one of those updates is basically how we're wording it, of just important information that we've come up with along the way. And then we think that a draft final report could be ready in June of 2024 also. And that'll then lead some time for and a presentation there for the discussion and in the final report and the closeout of the grant.
Question?
So
Is this, let me ask, when you're thinking that the engineers would report, are you thinking that we would invite them to a river committee meeting, or do you think we would have a public presentation that we invite all the towns to?
we can have that right here during one of your meetings.
Yeah.
And what I was picturing was a meeting just like we're having right now.
Okay.
With a presentation up there. And
By the
describing,
engineers, by the consultants.
With the consultants, right, correct.
And now let me ask, at some point, we've been thinking we would want to invite Brentwood in, and particularly at the point where we know what the options are and the pros and cons and the costs of all the different options. I'm looking at this and thinking that's around January of 2024 that we would be ready to do that. Is that right?
Yeah, but I think the May of 2023 consultant update would be a perfect time to invite those folks here also, so they can see what kind of progress is being made in the analysis. It won't be fully defined by any means, but there will be good information to come out of that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just mentioned the meeting in a couple of months where the consultant can give the update, and it'll be a more important update if we can go ahead and do that extra survey in the river and do those soil samples. With, we'll definitely want to have that done for that particular meeting. But one of our options here that the board has been bringing up was, why can't we go back to something else besides high hazard? What do we have to do that maybe to get rid of the high hazard designation on this particular dam? And what we're hoping to do is have the Jim Weber from the DES Dam Bureau to come in and talk to you folks on that same day of what that means.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure.
I'm new to this and new to town, but could you briefly explain why it's a high hazard dam?
He is, your name is
Don Latiner.
Don Latiner,
I live.
and he lives near the
bordering on
Pickpocket
Pickpocket
Dam.
Road.
Yeah.
Okay, the question was, why is this a high hazard dam? Well, a couple of years ago, it wasn't a high hazard dam. And what the town had to do by a letter of deficiency, because we didn't do a breach analysis in recent times, we had to do a breach analysis that looked at a artificial break in the dam during a sunny event, and then another during a storm event. And I can't recall the storm event size, whether it was 50 year or 100 year, but they had to look at that. And they had to see what kind of implications downstream from a catastrophic failure of the dam would cause. And so a surge would happen that changes the elevation of the river, and if houses and some mobile homes and even Kingston Road that is downstream is affected by it, the severity of those effects then warranted a high hazard designation. So the dam went from a low hazard to high hazard after the breach analysis. A couple of dates to remember. By June 1st, and this is written right on the schedule also, 2024, by our current marching orders, is to submit an application to reconstruct the dam or a plan otherwise in June of 24. And you can see that this schedule goes out to June of 24. And it lays out at least the way that the grant folks and our consultants are approaching this project. The other time frame, or the date that we got to remember, is at the end of 2027, that whatever we choose for modifications of the dam to bring it into compliance, it should be done by the December of 2027.
Paul, I just got a couple of questions too. First of all, this is really helpful looking at chart, breaking this out. One is, so the actual final report, I assume that is folded into task 7 there, so that would be completed by April of 24?
Correct.
Okay, so you have those few months to whip
Yeah,
it
and
back.
we have to do that by then at least because of that's going to be a requirement of the stormwater planning grant.
Yep, great. And then that report by June of '24 goes into the DES Dam Bureau?
The Dam Bureau will get the draft report. Earlier in the year, they will get the final report. What the DES folks then will be waiting for is what does this town want to do to increase the discharge capacity of Pickpocket Dam.
And that decision needs to be made by June '24?
That's the way it's worded right now.
Okay.
And that gives us a few months, a couple of months from the end of it. But as we found out with the Great Dam, as long as we are diligently working on getting answers, some of those deadlines can be extended as long as we are actively working on the solution.
And sorry, one more question, just so I'm clear on it too. December of 2027 is the date where the modifications have to be complete, or that is the date of the start of the project for modifications?
The first scenario, it has to be complete.
Okay, all right, so working backwards from there. Great, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions?
I think we're good. Oh, you said that the coastal resilience grant was 40,000 and the other one was 400,000, is that right?
100,000 for the stormwater planning grant.
Okay.
Okay, the next project I'd like to talk about is the Exeter Reservoir. And this is another high-hazard dam that cannot meet discharge capacity. And up until about a half a year ago, the Public Works was going to tackle that at some later date because we have Pickpocket Dam in front of us right now. But the DES folks were able to provide a grant to a lot of the high-hazard dam users that have deficiency to help with either analyzing the problem or fixing it. So we did put in an application, and I talked about that before, and I think the dollar figure was around $172,000 to see what can be done with the Exeter Reservoir Dam to meet its discharge requirements. And we got word recently that that is all approved, and we should be getting the paperwork for that now. So that project will be starting up in the next few months. The timeline for that project, though, is not like immediate answers. It's going to take a little while to get there. And I don't have the grant in front of me to tell you how long, but it's going to be at least a year. Any questions on that one?
So that'll be a year before we know the options and the pros and cons and costs of whatever options?
Yes.
Yeah. And then how would we fund the options? Is that part of this grant, or would we have?
We'll wait for another year for you to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might be a warrant article or something else.
Or if they still have the high hazard grants going strong, well, there may be some options there also.
Fingers and toes crossed that that will work.
And there may be some options with that same comment with Pickpocket Dam too.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Apparently.
Do you want to come up here?
You made reference to, or this is Don Latiner speaking as a guest, you made reference to a plan to increase the discharge of the Exeter Reservoir. Could you briefly describe that and say whether it might apply to the Pickpocket Dam?
Yeah, I did not make a good connection with Pickpocket Dam. So once we did the breach analysis and found out some of the implications of a breach and got the new high hazard designation, from there, a dam with a high hazard designation needs to be able to pass 2.5 times a 100-year storm event. And if you recall, the design storm that we had to pass for the Great Dam project was a 50-year storm event. This one here is 2.5 times a 100-year storm event because of the high hazard. Great Dam was a low hazard designation. So with preliminary work that you've seen last year by our consultant, we know that Pickpocket Dam cannot adequately pass that storm without overtopping the abutments. We saw the elevations of it on the cross-section of the dam. So with that, that is the tie-in to your question there. I mentioned discharge capacity with the Exeter Reservoir Dam. I did not connect discharge capacity to the Pickpocket Dam, but with that designation of high hazard, that's the storm event that we have to analyze all of our options with, is this 2.5 times a 100-year storm event.
Thank you.
Okay. Now to mention a couple of more grants that we are getting underway. One is a grant that helps us out with our adaptive management plan for how we're going to be potentially tackling the nitrogen situation in Great Bay. And we have a grant for $45,000 and a contract with a consultant for $89,400 to follow through with some analysis for us. The first, there's three things that we're going to try to accomplish with this. One is, you may be familiar with the Lincoln Street sub-watershed analysis. There was a 2-volume analysis that was done by a consultant a few years ago. And what they did is they looked at our largest drainage area that outfalls down by the PEA boathouse and said, how can we do improvements in the drainage system to have better water quality or even water volume, less water volume going to the Squamscott River. And this is going to be a similar task, only this time we're going to eliminate our largest watershed, our drainage area, and look at other areas of town and also downtown also. So our consultant will be looking at where these BMPs, these improvements could possibly be made in your drainage system. And I think at the end of it, we'll have a few extra, not 100% designs, but pretty good ones for future implementation. So that's one part of that grant. The next one is the fertilizer program, how we can help educate our residents in the appropriate use of fertilizers. And then the third part is, what about advanced septic systems? Can additional improvements be made on some septic systems to increase their nutrient removals? And so the town's going to look at that, but the town's also looking at it with a flavor of if there are some of these septic systems with these additional trains put into them, is there a way to incentivize citizens to install those? And with that, there's also another group headed up by the PREP, and PREP is Piscataqua Region Estuaries Partnership, where they're doing a very similar activity, and they should be done by this fall. And why? Because there's other states that promote the use of these alternative treatment technologies to enhance pollutant removals in the septic system. And the PREP folks will be gathering up, and I'm reading this from a little page here, so forgive me for that, convene some consultants, experts, and regulators, plus some local partners to review septic system literature and policies to identify these alternative treatment technologies for use possibly in New Hampshire. And so that is a somewhat parallel group that is doing the same thing with probably to a higher degree than we are. We're just adding the wrinkle of what methods could possibly be out there to incentivize the use of these if they do find that they are a good alternative for reducing nutrients in our water bodies.
Do you think it would be a valuable exercise to invite PREP to come and present in our meetings what their activities are doing and what they're trying to achieve?
I think it'd be perfect when they're done with that project.
When they're done. So we should wait until, you said the fall, maybe.
In the fall. That's what my paper said, fall.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when we put that application together for this grant and got accepted, it took a long time to finally get the approvals for it. We didn't get the approvals till January, February. So we're asking for another extension to the end of this year for that. Otherwise, we were supposed to be done in June of this year. So we're going to have to, we are asking for an extension of that one.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
as it so happens, I work for PREP. So,
Oh, excellent.
actually, so you're in luck. But yeah, I agree with Paul. I think that process, that's just getting started now. Probably be best to wait for its conclusion in the fall. I think that would be a good
Please let
timeline.
me know if there's anything we should do to
Yeah, absolutely. And if there are any specific questions, so I work as a habitat program manager, so more of a restoration side, but our community engagement program manager, Abigail Lyon, is really the person that's heading that project. So if there's any specific questions, I can certainly bring it her way.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And I hope I did somewhat justice to it. Okay.
Nailed it.
Very good.
He always does.
Don has a question.
Thank you. As a septic system owner and not someone who knows much about it, can you tell us whether the range of improvements involves full replacement of a septic or the addition of some machine or strainer or whatever?
We'll be giving updates to the board as this project goes along, and I think those questions will be answered of what technologies are out there and what appropriate use there might be for New Hampshire.
Do we know what percentage of Exeter residents are using septic tanks versus the town sewer system?
You will know.
Okay. We will know.
Yeah. And I say that because we've already gave the consultant the data for who is being charged a sewer bill. And if you have a structure on a house, it means you probably got, a structure on a lot means you usually either have sewer service or a septic system. They'll count those up and then you'll have that percentage.
Thank you.
Okay, and one more project that is grant related, and this is one that we've had approved for a little while, and it was the Winter Street Kids Park BMP, where we were going to install something that helps remove the nutrients. And I told you last year that we had done a boring because the particular drain lines in that area that we'd be tying into are rather deep, and we would need to see where the groundwater elevations were. When we put the boring or the well in, it was the drain line the groundwater was deeper than the drain line. Some of the recent tests are bringing the groundwater up a little higher, which is more challenging for designing an appropriate improvement that would be removing these nutrients. So more to come on that one. We've got a consultant working on that, and that's about as most I can say about it right now.
You've used an acronym, I think, called BMP. Can you tell me what that means?
Best management practice.
Okay.
It's one of those we've talked about several times, that it's not a really good name for these things, but that's kind of one of the industry terms, and and I've been trying to say improvements sometime instead of BMP also.
Good. Thank you.
And then the last project I'd like to give you an update on is the siphon project. It's been a while since we talked about it here. If our last meeting was in October, well, we tried to construct that project starting in December. So just a little bit of history on the project first. That area of town to the north of Portsmouth Avenue drains down to a siphon across the Exeter Reservoir at the end of J.D. Hill Ave near Clemson Lagoon. And the siphon then goes across underneath the river to Swayze Parkway to the main pump station, and then the sewer then is pumped up to the wastewater treatment facility at DPW on Newfields Road. Those siphons were nearing capacity, and with development potential in that area of town, we needed more capacity. So we had a project that was going to design an additional siphon barrel across the river, but at the same time, we had it in that contract that we want our existing siphons cleaned pretty good and inspected. When we did that, did the cleaning and inspection, and all as best we could, found some holes in the existing siphons. So then it was, what do we do about not only adding additional capacity, but what are we going to do with the sewer flows that we have currently? And with that, there was looking for additional funds because now this project's going to be costing more. And we had it from many different ways: principal forgiveness in SRF, the Oh, that's the state revolving fund, congressionally directed spending, some state ARPA funds, and even some town ARPA funds. And we thought we had enough money to go ahead and, up to the engineer's estimate of constructing now 3 siphon barrels across the river. And the way that we were going to do this was by directionally drilling and then pulling the polyethylene pipe through the drill to the other side and then reconnecting everything. And the project started, the construction portion started in December. And when that happened, we hit ledge 100 feet out from where we were boring. And it was unexpected. We did do a couple borings on land. We had the original test pit data, borings from the original siphon that was a couple hundred feet downriver. We had borings at our main pump station, and we also had information from PEA on some of their projects down by the boathouse. So it was unexpected. And with that, the contractor had to then change over to a rock drilling operation. And there were several tries with that, and we finally made it through to the other side. And how rock drilling goes now is that we had a 6-inch hole that we were drilling through to the other side. And then once you're on the other side, you now enlarge that hole to 12-inch, and then you enlarge it one more time so that we can then pull the pipe through. During the enlarging activity, the drill mechanism got stuck in the center of the river. A shaft broke. So next week, the contractor is going to try to remove the shaft, and if it's close enough to the drill rig, we might be able to dig down and reattach the drill rods to that. But if it's not, we're probably going to have to abandon that particular hole and start all again with another drill situation. And it's important that we continue at this point because the condition of the existing siphons are not very good. And if something should happen to those that may require pumping around something, it would be nice to have that barrel already installed under the river to help that effluent to get from one side of the river to the other. So that's where we're at right now with the siphon project.
Are you having to pursue additional grants to support all this extra effort that's showing up, or?
Well, it's costing us more.
Yeah.
Right now, there's not additional grants that will be available, like right now when we need it. But there will be need that game plan on how we're going to finance any of the extra costs for this.
So that's all up in the air to figure out what can happen to fix this.
Well, it's not all up in the air. There's options, but the way through right now is not figured out.
Yeah. Is this a major source of nitrogen getting into the Great Bay?
Right now, we have no indication that that's the cause of any of that.
But is it happening? I mean, this is a source of nitrogen pollution in the Great Bay?
Well, there is nitrogen in the Great Bay, and that's why we've got all these rules that we're doing. But to blame it on the siphon, is I think that we don't have the indication that that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and with that, if there's no other questions, that concludes my reports.
Any other questions?
You will be asking me what I think about next meeting, and I can talk about what's on my plate. You might have other issues, but if we go back to the schedule and we see that there's that consultant update, I think that would be a good time for me to be here for a next meeting.
So we're thinking May would be the next meeting, and we'll try to get all these things included in that meeting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah. Okay, that would be May 18th.
Okay.
would be the next,
For your consideration.
yeah. So that's a proposal on the table. Okay, thank you,
you.
Paul, that was a lot of detail. It was very helpful. The next item on the agenda is other business. We got any other business? Next would be public comment. We've had a little public comment, thank you. Okay. Are we ready to adjourn? Who wants to move to
I
adjourn?
will move to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Nico has
second
moved and Don has seconded. Ron is the second. Okay, well, I guess we're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.